What's going on, everybody? I hope you guys are all doing amazing, and boy do I have a banger video for you guys. First off, thank you so much for the recent support. I never would have thought I would have seen these numbers in my life, but yet here we are. So yeah, thank you guys so much. It really means a lot to me. But let's get on to the video now. I asked you guys what you wanted to see next, and I wanted a real challenge, and you guys chose bows. So here we are. After completing the game, I hereby stand that bows are the worst type of weapon in Elden Ring. I mean, there's nothing worse than seeing a maxed out bow doing this fucking damage. The main reason that nobody uses bows is because all the enemies have something called an input reading. An example of this would be right here. As you can see, Malenia sees that I'm shooting an arrow at her and she dodges out of the way. So it's really hard to get some hits in. But on Friday last week, for the first time ever, I played the DLC and beat it within 12 hours. So I was ready for this. Thankfully, I'm not the only one. We have the community writing whole ass paragraphs out here on why these are the worst weapons. And I wouldn't disagree with them. They're pretty shit. You guys are gonna see some of the worst damage I've ever done on this channel. I mean, even the whips did more than this shit. I spent 18 hours just playing on the game, not even editing this video, but I just want to ask you one time, please consider subscribing. It's free and it helps me out so much. Recording this whole 18 hours of footage just made me feel so much pain, but it's gonna be great for you guys because it's all edited down into pure perfection. So if you like this video, toss a like on it. It wouldn't hurt and it helps push this video onto the algorithm. But I know you guys want to see me suffering, so grab some popcorn, lean back in your chair, and enjoy the video. After I woke up in the stranded graveyard, I made my way to Kale to buy the cookbooks because we are going to need a lot for this run. I got my horsey and then picked up the strength knot tier. This is going to be very useful for something we use later on. I wanted to get Assassin's Gambit as quick as possible, but I fucked up the cheese and absolutely destroyed Bernal's head. After giving Bernal a headache, this is just proof why bows actually just suck ass, especially against NPCs. I mean, every single shot just got input red. I mean, even when this guy's on my ass. So I just decided this wasn't worth it and I was going to come back to it later, so I went to the ruins to grab the whetstone knife to let me customize my Ashes of War out of Sight of Grace. After getting bitch slapped by the Knights Cavalry, I went up to Fort Height because there was a golden seed there. There was actually a couple key things I needed here, so it was good to come up here anyways. After I made my way through the fort, I got up on the roof and shot the knight to bait him up to the top, climbing the ladder. And if you guys didn't know, all you have to do is kill this knight and then the whole fort will be cleared. So once this knight was killed, I simply just quit out to reload back in and wow, boom, there we go, the whole fort's cleared. I took this time to get the cookbook that allows me to make bleed arrows, and this is going to be really useful later on. You'll see why. Next up, I went to go grab the Wonders Physic, but sadly, I don't think there's a single physic tier in the game that'll actually buff the bows. And as far as I know, the charge tier actually doesn't even affect the bows either. So yeah, nice. W class, everybody. Anyways, I took the teleporter to the Knights Cavalry and I killed this guy with pure skill for a free 42k. I went to Caelid and immediately fell off of a bridge. Let's go. But after that, Melina took me to the round table and I came across this merchant that was selling fire arrows. This is going to be really useful for the bosses that are weak to fire. And also, these were in an unlimited quantity. So yeah, I just needed to remember this was here. On my way to get a talisman, I picked up a golden seed and then I climbed this tower. I climbed to the top of this tower and I opened a chest for probably the only talisman that's ever gonna buff a bow for damage wise. The arrow reach talisman is like okay, I guess, but like if you just get input red every fucking shot, what's the point? I followed this up by going back to kill Bernal and then I absolutely shit myself because I forgot the bell-bearing hunter spawns here at night. And yeah, here we go. I mean, even though Bernal input reads, I should do a lot more damage now, right? Let's see. What the fuck? That's it? 61 damage is crazy, but I went to go get Golden Bow because I thought that would help slightly. Once I got that, I made my way down to the coast to buy the short bow from the merchant down here, and I thought this was going to be a little bit better. I made my way to go get the Beast Torch, and I figured out that this guy actually sells serpent arrows in unlimited quantity. This just means I could barrage the enemy with serpent arrows at the start of the fight, and this will make it a lot easier. And this actually lasts for quite a long time too, so it's actually not bad at all. I took this time to stock up on a bunch of these so I didn't have to come back, and now I figured I could probably kill Bernal, but you know, I didn't know I was fighting Miles fucking Morales. I mean, this guy legit hopped every single one of my arrows. It's just impossible to hit this guy. So I gave up on this and I just decided I wanted to go get a different bow. So I figured I was going to go get this one in the abandoned cave. This next bow that I'm getting is called the Serpent Bow. And when it is paired with serpent arrows or just any arrows, it adds a base 15 poison buildup. So this is going to poison really fast. And just because all bows have such a low base damage, I'm just going to have to mostly rely on like rot and poison and stuff like that for most of the boss fights, since obviously the damage isn't enough. And even if the damage wasn't enough, you can only carry 99 of most arrows, so I mean, it's just kind of fucked. So now that I got that bow, I just needed some runes, and I was gonna go try to get Assassin's Gambit as soon as possible. Once I got the necklace back from Bogger, I went back to Raya, and she was sitting at the top of the Dectus lift, so I had to make my way there first. But I made my way to the Volcano Manor. I joined it because that's all you have to do to get Assassin's Gambit, and now I could buy it. Assassin's Gambit makes exploring really easy, so I thought I would take this to go get Golden Vow first. So I did just that, crouched around the dogs, and picked up Golden Vow. Once I picked up Golden Vow, I got chased around the whole entire map by Anastasia. They obviously updated her AI, and she could climb the ladder now. She just doesn't have a seizure at the bottom like she always does. Once I got to the top, I figured I'd look down and start lighting her up, and yep, that's exactly what I did, and she ended up falling 20 stories. If I wanted to use Golden Vow, I had to go grab the Faith Nut tier, and luckily this was really close in the Weeping Peninsula, and this wasn't too hard to get. But I also swooped the Sacred Tears here. I wanted to get the Warrior Jar Shard, but I made the mistake of letting him escape before I went to Altus, because I'm pretty sure that's why he moved. So I just decided to go upgrade my Serpent Bow so I can go kill Radahn. Once I activated the festival, I teleported to the Radahn arena. If you run straight back when you first start in the arena with your horse, his AI bugs and he just starts charging at you. But luckily for us, Radahn is extremely vulnerable to Scarlet Rot, and it only takes a couple of arrows to proc it. Right as I started the fight, I summoned all my boys to come help, and you could really see the poison going to town here. Now all I really had to do was just walk the dog around the arena. And as soon as the fight was going to come to the end, Mommy started running at me over a hill. This was a whole ass movie anticlimactic scene right here. But after Radahn fell, I got the Remembrance of the Star Scourge and immediately went to go trade it in for the Lion Great Bow. This has a really unique Ash of War, and it stars against big targets. You're gonna see why later on in the video. This was a A-tier choice to go with. But Radahn's spears did cost my whole bank account and a couple loans, but it should have been fine. I also remembered that in the Radahn arena, there's a lot of Radahn spears that you could just pick up off the stray sand, so I went back to that and got a lot. There was surprisingly a lot of spears here, and this actually saved me a lot of money, but it is time for the least favorite part of the game. Everybody look away. Listen, I'm sorry, man. Poor Alexander's probably been killed millions of times, but if he didn't drop such a good talisman, this wouldn't have happened. After I got the Warrior Jar Shard, my next priority was making my way over to the castle and fighting Morgott. Since Radahn's Rain didn't have an input reading, I decided to start the fight off with this, and thankfully that Radahn's Rain actually did a pretty okay amount of damage to rely on it. But again, Morgott is probably not a great boss to use it on. Even though it still did a lot of damage, the target is ideally probably have to be bigger than that. After I got a couple more shots off, I got him into a second phase and decided to switch to the Serpent Bow. The reason I switched to this bow just really quickly is to apply a status effect, and I was planning to switch to Radahn's Rain after, but this was just doing so much damage I really didn't worry about it. But after I killed Morgott, Assassin's Gambit made it really smooth going through Stormveil Castle, and up next was Godrick. I don't want to say that Godrick was challenging, because he was big enough of a target for Radahn's Rain to actually do something. But I started the fight off by buffing and then applying poison to him, because if you guys remember my dagger playthrough, that's the thing I relied on the whole fight. For some reason, this dumbass just kept rolling straight into the tree. I mean, I'm not gonna say nothing, it's free shots for me. Instead of running towards him at the start of his second phase, I just decided to sprint back immediately and get a couple shots off while I could. Radahn's Rain was doing a pretty okay damage to Morgott, so I thought this was gonna do great to Godrick. So I tried it out, and yeah, I wasn't wrong. It was doing a pretty great amount of damage. One good thing about Radahn's Rain as well is it shoots multiple arrows for the price of one, so it's very consistent too. This fight did not last long at all, and since I had Radahn's and Godrick's Great Rune, I went over to this weird finger chick and she gave me another talisman pouch. I didn't really know what I was gonna put here yet, but I had an idea, so I went to the cave to get it. Getting Assassin's Gambit early on is just so useful, it's crazy. The boss fight was very simple. It was just a golem, and it was big enough for Radahn's Rain to absolutely shred through its health bar. After I ended this fight, I picked up the Blue Dancer Charm, and since I always ran lightweight anyway, this was perfect for me. After I got the Blue Dancer Charm, I made my way all the way up the stairs to the capital Outskirts. Now I was planning to just grab all the golden seeds here and fight the Draconic Tree Sentinel next, but I stopped by this merchant first. This guy was selling an unlimited amount of golden arrows. Now I really was thinking, but I didn't see this as a viable option because it dealt holy damage, and most bosses in base game are resistant to holy. I farmed a couple golems outside of Altus, but sadly I had no luck. Next up on the list was Draconic Tree Sentinel, and this fight was definitely the weirdest of the whole playthrough. You're gonna see why in just a second. Most of these fights aren't even hard. It's just kind of reserving enough ammo to actually finish the fight. But about halfway down his health bar, you guys know the NPCs from Skyrim? Yeah, this is what this motherfucker started doing, and I really have no clue why, but I mean, maybe it was just a bug? Yeah, that's not all either. I mean, this guy literally did this for the whole rest of the fight. I mean, I don't know what was up with his AI, but something obviously bugged out, and it was funny as shit. But I'm not gonna complain because this made the fight a lot easy, and I just had a lot of poison built up on him. But he did keep spamming this lightning for some reason, but I mean, it wasn't very hard to dodge. This guy was really low, and I almost ran out of arrows, but I did have a really close call here, but thankfully my game knowledge has increased since the last time I played. But after that attack, Draconic Tree Sentinel was defeated, and I got a free 50k from him. After I killed Draconic Tree Sentinel, I immediately went back to Caelid to buy some fire arrows, and if you you're wondering why, you're gonna see why just shortly here. The first reason here is to kill this Erdtree. I really just could have used normal arrows, but fire arrows just did like a little bit more damage, and this guy's made of wood. I don't know if you guys knew that. But anyways, yep, I killed this guy and got Lord's Rune. Yep, 50k runes. Yep, there we go. Since I had fully access to Leyndell, I just decided to go down into the sewers and use Assassin's Gambit to sneak by the lobsters for 2 free Somber Smithing Stone 7s. I needed both of these because there's a bow that I'm gonna get later on that's gonna need to be upgraded because it's probably arguably one of the best bows in the game. But since I had Somber 7s, I figured I was gonna go get the 8 and the 9 by the Divine Tower of Caelid. You guys also saw me starting Varay's questline earlier, and you're probably wondering why. Also, I appreciate you guys letting me know that I only have to do this 3 times instead of 5. This is very nice. But after I did this 3 times, I went back to Varay and he gave me the Lord of Blood's favor, so I had to dye it with the Maiden's Blood. This wasn't too hard, I got it, and then I got back to Varay for the Pure Blood Knight's Medal, and after this, I made my way straight up to the top of Mogwin Palace. The first time I tried getting this item, I absolutely got fucking railed by these guys. Ugh, and then I also realized that Radahn has the 2nd highest noise made from a projectile in the game, so that's also pretty crazy. So I shot 1 bullet, they were all attracted to it, and I picked up the Somber Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone. After this, I headed straight to Volcano Manor because I needed a 5 and a 6, and I really didn't know any other way to get one this quickly, so this was my most viable option. But I made my way through Volcano Manor, and yeah, look at that, I just got a 5 and a 6, and now I had a maxed out Radahn's Reign at the beginning of the game still, basically. I upgraded my Serpent Bow to +6, and then I went over to kill this Mausoleum that had a bell to duplicate Radahn's Remembrance. And since I was gonna go duplicate this one, I went back to the Raya Lucaria Crystal Tunnel, and just outside of it, there's an airlift that makes you be able to leap onto this other one. So after I made the jump onto this Mausoleum, I duplicated Radahn's Remembrance a 2nd time for the money. I went to go get Godrick's Great Rune next, and I went to go farm this bow dude at the inn, and oh my gosh, guys, look, I got it. Oh, just kidding, it's a fucking great arrow. After getting debated by the bow golem, I went up and collected Godrick's Great Rune, and after I went to go kill Gillica because I wanted to get the ritual sword that's locked behind her. And if you guys didn't know, the closer the ceiling to the enemy, the closer the arrows on Radahn's Reign comes down from. But after I killed Gillica, I picked up the ritual sword talisman that raises attack power by 10% when at max HP. Since I was on an item gathering, I went to grab Howl of Shibriri, and then after I grabbed Howl of Shibriri, I made my way back to Leyndell because I was gonna go kill Godfrey Shade for my 4th talisman slot. I started off the fight by shooting him with just a regular Radahn Spirit. It did 1000 damage, which is not bad at all. But this fight made me forget something crucial about the bow class. There's something that I literally haven't been doing this whole time to make probably every fight easier. Most bows in this game have a feature where you can shoot mid-jump, and I cannot believe that I forgot about this the whole entire time. This was a crucial part of bow class, and I just cannot believe I even forgot about this. But after I killed Godfrey Shade, I went to grab my next weapon called the Black Bow, and this was probably the best bow in the game for light builds. It was a little tricky getting over there, but eventually I made it and picked up the Black Bow, and thankfully that this acts as a light bow, allowing you to jump and shoot again immediately upon landing. So after I picked that up, it was time for Morgott, and I started the fight by gracing out so I could start way further back than normal. But there's actually a reason for this. I'm not just doing this because if you pop Assassin's Gambit before you go in the gate, he actually doesn't see you. And since Radahn's Reign didn't get input read, it absolutely shredded Morgott. And for some reason, I double fact checked this, but Morgott has a bigger hitbox than Margit? I mean, okay, I guess. Morgott was looking like it wasn't going to be a very challenging fight with Radahn's Reign, and since he kind of just walked at you, this gave me a lot of windows to attack. Radahn's Reign was purely kicking this guy's ass, and luckily I had a lot of spears from leftover fights, and yeah, this guy was pretty quick work. Poor Morgott didn't get to throw a single javelin at me, but I made my way up to the Grand Lift of Rolled because Malenia gave me the rolled medallion. Making my way up there, I crossed paths with the Teardrop Scarab holding a Somber 6, so I figured I needed to kill this guy so I could upgrade my Black Bow. After killing him, this ball doubled in size, which is kind of crazy, dude. But I eventually took this guy down to grab the free Somber 6. After I got this Somber 6, I made my way through the Forbidden Lands up to the Grand Lift of Rolled, and then I just progressed my way through the mountaintops of the Giants. I killed this golem, and then he finally, just kidding, it was some more fucking great arrows. But then I killed another poor Teardrop Scarab for a Somber Smithing Stone 8. After I picked this up, I just kind of made my way through the mountaintops like I usually do all the way up to Fire Giant. But first, I went to go kill a Deathbird for a specific talisman. And if you climb up on this debris, the Deathbird kind of just stands there and takes it like a good boy. For some reason, I really don't know why he does this. He only has one attack that triggers at the end of the fight, but I mean, it really isn't a problem when you're 60 feet elevated. But after I killed this guy, I picked up the Red Feathered Branch Sword, and this is going to be very useful for certain fights since the bows don't do a lot of damage. I could also just use Seppuku and Assassin's Gambit to trigger this. So that's exactly what I did. I went to the mountaintops on the Freezing Lake to grab Seppuku. This will kill you if you try to get yourself below 20%, but with Assassin's Gambit, you should easily be able to do this. But I grabbed the Somber 9 to upgrade my Black Bow, and thankfully, I was finally ready to kill Fire Giant. So I started started by getting myself below 20% health with Assassin's Gambit and Seppuku. You know that this effect is activated when you could see the ritual sword particles around you, but it was pretty simple. My plan for this fight was to just poison Fire Giant like I did in the Dagger playthrough, and then I just hopefully stay alive. The Asha War on the Black Bow allowed me to spam Fire Giant with a lot of poison arrows and finally get a poison proc. It didn't take a long time, which was really good, but there was a problem. Every time you poison an enemy, their resistance goes higher, and Fire Giant nearly tripled his resistance, so I had to grace out and figure out a different plan. My new plan was to get a lot of these Aeonian butterflies because these were materials to make the rot arrows, and yeah, that was really just my plan. Rot arrows and poison. Great plan, right? Oh yeah, I also forgot to tell you guys I had to commit mass murder to the wildlife. Stop by Mogwin Palace to grab the abundance of heroes runes here for some reason, but hey, I'm not complaining. I also restocked up on serpent arrows because I was going to need a lot for this fight. But now it was finally time for Fire Giant. I activated a red feathered branch, and here we go. This was it. I started off by spamming Fire Giant's foot with a bunch of rot arrows, hoping for a proc. Sadly, I didn't get one right away, but shortly after I did end up procking him, and this was really doing a lot of damage. This was crazy good early on. It did take 20 arrows to get a full proc in, but that really wasn't a problem when I had 90. And after rot ran out, I just resorted to serpent arrows because I didn't want to waste a lot more arrows just trying to get a higher resistance off this guy. But I finished him off with the Radahn Great Arrow, and that sent him into second phase. I was very unprepared for the beginning of the second phase, but I mean, I did get one Radahn's Rain off that did quite a bit of damage, but I just kind of resorted to running around on my horse and shooting with rot arrows. I guess this is the one pro about using bows. I mean, you could literally just run around forever and just shoot him. I mean, it's really not that hard with Fire Giant. But I got the remembrance and all the money, and I headed my way to Farum Azula after Malenia burned the Erd Tree. Getting through this place was usually a pain, but with Assassin's Gambit, I mean, it's literally like no problem. You guys should always try to invest in this as early as possible. I went to go kill Kenneth Height, but like, I really didn't try. He just kind of got in my way, but I mean, free golden seed. Anyways, I grabbed the cookbook for sleep pots, and now it was finally time to fight Godskin Duo. I really didn't have a designated plan for this fight. I just kind of hoped and prayed that it would actually work. Started off by activating a red feather because without it, Radahn's Rain would have just tickled them. And then I just did the usual by throwing a couple sleep pots and getting them to both go to sleep. So I did all my buffs, and then I sent Radahn's Rain to go to work. For some reason, this registered that the ceiling was way closer to him, but I am not complaining. That is a free 10k. Managed to even get some after damage on too, but for Skinny, it was different. Sadly, this guy was way too slim for Radahn's Rain to be very effective on him, and the ceiling on this guy was way higher. Say, I could have used Golem arrows, but those things are a pain in the ass to farm, and I really didn't want to have to go up my arcane to do any of that. I usually always one cycle Godskin Duo. I mean, that's a lie. I fucking suck. Godskin Duo is honestly always really easy for me because you could get 2 hits and get a free riposte in, and then another charge off after that. So sadly, both can't crit or break stance. I mean, they can, but it's really not worth it is what I'm just trying to say. And with melee weapons, it's a lot easier. But I slept the fatty and hoped to get another ceiling glitch, but sadly, I mean, it did a K amount of damage, but still. My new plan was just try to apply poison on both of these guys and drain their health. And when fatty started rolling, I started panicking, but luckily, Skinny respects the 1v1s. That would have been really fucked if Skinny aggroes onto you while the fat one's rolling. I mean, I just can't even imagine what that would look like. But after fatty stopped rolling shortly after, I just kind of ran to a safe distance to start using the barrage again, but fatty was still poisoned, and it was doing a pretty good overtime amount of damage. Also, keep in mind that I planned to do a lot of damage at the start, and I kind of fucked up, so I was 1 HP the entire fight, and I wasn't about to heal to ruin the red feather. But at this point, fatty started rolling at me again, but luckily I knew from last time that this wasn't going to be very much of a problem, and I wonder if you could just stand still. But I was not about to myth bust that right now, and I was going to just play it safe, and luckily I dodged it perfectly. But I just tried to stay calm, and I knew if I died, I would have to go get a lot more arrows again. But I wasn't thinking about that and just kind of keep up the status effect on these guys. I would still choose to aggro fatty into his second phase and just keep Skinny where he is, because honestly, just having Skinny running at you at all times is kind of scary. But this fat ass literally just ran at me like I was his food on the dinner plate. Fatty started rolling again shortly after this. I got a couple extra shot off, and I just knew that if I stayed calm, I would dodge this perfectly. And yes, perfectly is right. After I dodged this, Skinny started tickling his friend back in, and I took this time to get a lot of damage off, and 1,000 damage for that amount of time is absolutely crazy. Well, I just kept applying pressure, and worst thing happened. Ran out of arrows, yep. Rod arrows in that case. But I had a couple extra serpent left, so yeah, that was good. This fight literally lasted 13 minutes, so fuck. Let's go. Oh my gosh. Wow. Dude, that went so bad, but like, Oh man, that is, oh. Yeah, safe to say I was pretty speechless, honestly, about these stupid fucking bosses, dude. But now that those two are out of the way, I just kind of progressed through Farum Azula just like every regular person would, I guess. I actually domed this ancient dragon in the head because I didn't need the stone from him and I just kind of only needed the somber. But now that he flew away, next up on the list was Maliketh. I didn't really know how this fight was gonna go, but I started by barraging a lot of serpent arrows into this beast clergyman. And thankfully, by the end of the time that I led a bunch of arrows into this guy, he looked like a porcupine and he got proc with poison. The main things with bows that I'm noticing is that all these fights have to just rely mostly on time. Since bows do not have a lot of damage capabilities like the swords and stuff, you just kind of have to rely on status effects. Anyways, once the second phase started, I first started off by running up higher and I got absolutely bitch slapped. Even though I took a heavy hit off the start, if I really wanted to, looking back at this, I totally could have just swapped Ritual Sword for Red Feather. He started doing his Blade of Death attack after this, and I was way too far from it, and I purposely ran away so I didn't have to dodge and had a lot of time to shoot him. I still wanted to play this fight extra safe because, like always, if I die, especially with rod arrows, I'm gonna have to go farm a lot, and there's not an unlimited amount of Aeonian butterflies which are used to craft rod arrows, so I gotta be safe here. After this, he started doing his Blade of Death attack again, and I've done this so many times. I used to just roll left into him so I can get some more hits in, but I feel like rolling right is way safer. And I'm starting to think, since he elevates his blade on the second spin around, if you could just back roll, maybe would be better. But now is not the time to do any myth bust because I have to lock in and kill him first try. Later on in the fight, I decided to switch to serpent arrows to try to alleviate a poison buildup on him. But now is the point where I fought Maliketh so many times, I was able to dodge a lot of his attacks as perfectly as I used to. After I finally got a poison buildup on him, I knew this fight was near the end. I just had to play safe, and now I figured out from you guys telling me earlier, I actually don't have to circle him right here. I could literally just stand right under him and fire a lot of arrows. So yeah, again, thank you guys for that. It really helps a lot. But it was getting to that point now, and I finally finished off Maliketh. Pause. But Maliketh dead, now I was on to Ashen Capital, but you know what time it is, we gotta go to Malenia. Sorry, Mr. Albus, I gotta do this to you. I'm not sitting through your dialogue again. I'd go through Commander Nile for the other half of the Halletree Medallion, as you all know. But, this skip isn't very great, but it's really nice to learn, I guess, early on if you don't want to go through the castle. But anyways, after I got the skip, the most weird shit happened to me. I mean, somebody needs to tell me how this guy just teleported 60 fucking feet. I mean, bro, what is that? And it also doesn't help, I'm stuck in the gray bow animation for a whole ass minute. Yeah, let's go. But I needed to kill this guy if I wanted to kill Commander Nile, and he literally depleted half of my serpent arrows, so I mean, nice, I guess. But after I killed him, I hopped up on this wall, and if you guys already don't know what I'm doing, I'm giving Commander a nice little headshot through this peak of the wall. And then after this, he peeks over at you like the annoying neighbor outside your door, and you just shoot him with rod arrows. Once this dude is procced, I mean, it's pretty simple. You literally just sit here. I don't know how you could fuck it up. I mean, the one downside is I'm a really impatient person, and I just kind of wanted to go in there, but, you know, gotta lock in. But I ended up finally sitting through the pain and killing Commander Nile. I grabbed the Halletree Medallion and started making my way through the concentrated snowfields. Up to this point, I was really thinking how I was even going to kill Malenia because she literally input reads everything you throw at her. But I lit the 4 candles and now the seal to the Halletree portal was open. I went to go grab the assassin's armor before anything because it completely silences footsteps. Now I just had to make my way through the Halletree, and thankfully I've been through this place many times and it was not hard at all. It just kind of takes time. I was still going through this Halletree thinking how I could fight Malenia, and I know I remembered I could jump shoot now, but like still she just input reads it. But now it is time for everybody's least unexpected boss, Loretta. I feel like for the time that you even fight Loretta, it's so late into the game that her hallucination like thingy is way harder. But she's just like another horse boss and literally has the same moveset as every other one, so I mean, it couldn't be that hard. I didn't even figure out that Loretta is actually weaker to poison than I thought, but I mean, made the fight easier for me. I'm not gonna complain. Now to just go down the main path to the Halletree routes where we were going to fight our next boss, Malenia. It took some time, but I'm actually so surprised I didn't even die once. But now we're here, and now it is time. She has a scripted attack at the start after her introduction cutscene. So I just died immediately as fast as possible so I could start way further back because I wanted to try Radahn's Rain. I didn't really expect too much from Radahn's Rain, but I was only going to try it out because it does not get input red. And just as I expected, it was kind of okay-ish. This is also what I mean by she literally just moves out of the way of every single arrow. So I needed to find something else. And that something else was definitely not Barrage either because she just sped out of every single arrow I shot. So it definitely did take some trial and error, but I kind kind of figured out how to guarantee a hit. You guys, obviously, if you've ever fought Malenia, there are certain attacks you can micro stagger her out of and certain attacks that you can't. And even when I did have the attack I could micro stagger her, it didn't do a lot of damage. I couldn't even rely on status effect either because, as many of you guys know, Malenia has a really high resistance for poison and raw. But I had an idea. I had to commit mass murder to the nearby wildlife again for this to work. So I got to shooting and I made a bunch of fletched blood arrows. Malenia can bleed really easily, so this is going to be really nice. Before I did anything, I switched to Serpent because I needed to figure out a lot of windows to get bleed shots in because the status effect won't proc if I don't hit her enough. After I started figuring out some great windows to do attacks in, it was looking pretty promising. I died again, but then I also forgot a crucial part about the bow class, jumping. I don't know how I keep forgetting this shit. The jumping has an extremely quick fire time, and it is very possible now that I know this. I would always be able to get a jump shot off after a kick, and the kick always happens whenever you miss an arrow or purposely shoot one at her to make her come and kick you. As you can see here, after every single shot, she goes for a kick, and I always get a free shot off. No matter if I hit her or if I miss her, she always goes for the kick. But there was a lot of windows that I figured out that you can shoot, and jump shots, especially after every single kick that I could purposely bait, it is going to be very good. I tried using bleed arrows the next time, and yeah, I got her really low, so this was looking really promising, but I just kept getting killed by unexpected attacks. And I even figured out I can jump and shoot after her lunge, which she mainly always does after a kick if you get far enough. Waterfall Dance wasn't a problem, and since I had extremely low HP anyways, I mean, why not use Red Branch Sword? So, I resorted to farming the wildlife one last time to make a lot more bleed arrows, and I didn't have a lot of blood roses left, so this is gonna be, challenging. I died so many times after, so I just decided to skip Malenia and beat the game. Wait, you actually thought I was going to skip Malenia? Of course I won't. The pain and suffering is pure content, so let's fucking do this. I started off by doing all of my regular buffs that I usually would do. And I started off the fight using fire instead of bleed arrows because I didn't want to start the proccing too soon because then I would have to hit her more to build up. So I was going to save them strictly for second phase and second phase only. And also, instead of rushing the fight, I decided to take this one really slow and just not be stupid and only attack when I for sure knew there was an opportunity. After every one of her rapid slices, she would do this thing where she doesn't input read me for a few seconds, so I had to take advantage of this. And now she was entering her state where she could start doing Waterfowl Dance, and luckily I played against her so many times and Waterfowl Dance isn't a problem. And it also left a huge opportunity for me to flurry her with arrows or just simply jump attacks. When I was fighting Malenia, I could be totally wrong, but she did her Waterfowl Dance almost every time after she sidestepped when I was way far away from her, so I took advantage of this to prepare ahead of time. And also I figured out how to lunge trap her. This was so useful to know, but she only did this 2 to 3 times before she actually realized she's getting fucked. And what I mean by this lunge trapping, by her lunge attack, if you roll far enough on the back roll, then you will initiate her lunge, and if you keep doing that after a kick, it'll always lunge. And as you can see here, it was working beautifully. You could only do this around 3 times before she does a different attack. But now the fight was just pure time, and I had to play smart here. I would always shoot an arrow, even knowing that it would purposely miss her, it would initiate the lunge trap. And luckily it doesn't happen so fast that I can get 2 shots off, but now I just really had to worry about dodging and playing smart. She was always mostly in the water, so I saw it as more of an effective way to use Serpent instead of fire arrows. So until she got into her second phase, I would start by fire and finish with Serpent on the first phase. And I knew that blood arrows could easily solo the first phase, but I just wouldn't have enough for the second, so that's why I have to use these sparingly. And even though I wasn't trying to rely on the status effect, a poison would be kind of nice, but I just kept making her lunge, and this was my main base of damage. Luckily, I had time to actually shoot 2 like I was saying before, instead of just 1 where I could wait for the click and then dash away after she lunges. Even though this is a terrible time to proc a poison, I mean, I procced it, I guess. Now is the time that I decided to switch to blood arrows because she literally had a non-existent health bar, and I also popped the rune arc so I could golden vow before second phase. And if you're wondering why I'm golden vowing before the second phase, you're gonna see why shortly. But I triggered the second phase, and this is exactly why I wanted to do golden vow beforehand, so I can get a bunch of damage in her Scarlet Aeonia, because honestly, this is where the main blood is gonna happen. The Barrage Ash of War, no matter what arrow causes what status effect, is by far the best no matter what. So I managed to proc a single bleed off of her, and this is where the fight actually started. She tried to grab me, but you just have to not panic and you'll be good. This is really where I thought I was screwed though. I really wasn't expecting the spirits, and honestly, I'm so lucky that I even even dodge that, it's crazy. And remember, if I even get breathed on by her, I'm dead because I activated Red Feather at the beginning of this fight. But this time, she just decided to hold a big middle finger up on me and say, fuck you, I'm doing it again. But luckily, I was way more prepared this time and I didn't even break a sweat. I try to keep the blood status as high as possible because I didn't want to have to waste a bunch of arrows for literally just a non-existent blood proc. But I kept lunge trapping her and she decided to do her Phantom Spirits again, which honestly, this wasn't really a problem. I was too far away, but still. After lunge trapping her quite a few more times, I got her down to the point where she shot off another Scarlet Aeonia, which was honestly not bad at all on my end because as you saw in the beginning, this is really good to do with blood arrows. So once she landed, I just started unleashing a flurry of Bloodbone arrows at her, and sadly, I didn't get a bleed proc, but I knew it was pretty high up there on the status effect. I knew that the status effect was super close, and I just kind of tried to keep the pressure up on it a little bit. By keeping up the pressure, I just kept jump shooting, and it was pretty simple. I just had to stay alive. But I just kept rolling her kicks and making her lunge, and slowly but surely, I was bound to get a bleed proc. I was waiting for a good opportunity to get a lot of shots in, and after I saw her uppercut starting attack, I knew this was perfect. But she just ended up canceling it mid-attack, which was really weird. I've never seen that before. But at this point, I shot her a couple more times, and she started doing another waterfowl, and that really wasn't a problem for me. After waterfowl dance, she fired off another Scarlet Aeonia, and this is when I knew the fight was over. If you don't deal a certain amount of damage to her, she will do this every 3 minutes. So in the back of my head, I just kind of kept that in mind. But with the bleed proc, the fight was over. Oh! I didn't think it was possible, ladies and gentlemen. I really didn't. But wow, man. That's... I mean... Yep, so there we have it. I actually ended up killing Malenia, and I'm not even lying, I really didn't think the fight was going to be possible. After upgrading, and now on to our next problem. Radahn's rain did absolutely nothing to this guy, and he input read every single one of my arrows. But, usually, I've never had a problem with this guy. But... this is the first ever time I actually considered trying to cheese it. Normally with the sword, you just do all your buffs and you do a fuck ton of damage off the start, but that's not the case in this one. You guys forget that I'm using probably the worst weapon class in the game. But I just kept dying and dying and dying. Like, it really looked like there was no hope, but finally I ended up getting a poison proc and killing him. Fuck that guy, he's so annoying as shit. But next up was the Chad Godfrey. I first started off the fight by just thinking how I was gonna do this, and I forgot about the jump attacks once again, so I just resorted to that whenever he did his stomps. Surely this is gonna be very straightforward. I was gonna plan to originally rot him since rot is way stronger than poison, but I didn't want to go farm again. I had the timings a little messed up from last playthrough, but with a couple extra practice runs, there should be no problem. So I started the fight by unleashing a flurry of serpent arrows to try to proc a poison, and thankfully I did. Now that I had a poison proc, I kind of just didn't want to rely on it because it didn't do a lot of damage. Poison is definitely no Scarlet Rot, but it is good to have as a secondary damage status effect while the fight is going on. Bows are fun, don't get me wrong, but there's just a couple things that I would wish they would change about it. And Godfrey's health bar was getting pretty damn low, so it was looking like this fight was going to be pretty promising. After he charged forth on me for another stomp, I knew that this was going to drag him into his second phase. He did this a couple more times before actually entering Horaloo, and now it was finally time. Circling him at the beginning of the fight allowed me to barrage a couple serpent arrows into him. I will say that the bow's versatility is really good against targets that don't input read. As you can see, after the grab attack, normally I can't get a lot of hits in, but with the bows, even though it doesn't do a lot of damage, that's a lot of status effect. So after the grab attack, I knew that that was going to be my plan for the end of the fight. He did another grab attack and I successfully dodged this one, thankfully getting a couple more hits in, and then he started his Earth Shaker. No Roar Earth Shaker is like really simple. You just kind of have to run away. But like many fights in this whole bow playthrough, this fight was just going to have to be time. I was extremely familiar with Horaloo's second phase because I prefer just plain distance. And honestly, with the bow, it just kind of makes more sense. He did another grab attack, which issued me a couple more hits on a status build-up. I was hoping for poison soon. Like I said, the real opponent here is just playing against time. So all I had to do was stay alive and keep consistently shooting him. And then until the very end, I ended up killing Horaloo. And now with Horaloo, that only leaves one option: Radagon and the Elden Beasts. And let me tell you, this fight was definitely the worst out of the whole playthrough. Oh my gosh, that damages. If you guys didn't know like I did, Radagon can parry your projectiles. If you get really unlucky like me, after he parries one of your projectiles, his next attack is way faster. But really, the damage wasn't the problem. It was having enough arrows to even finish the Elden Beast fight. Clearly, I'm going to need more than 90 fire arrows to kill Radagon with this shitty damage, and this is not good. After he did his grab attack, I just took this time to barrage a lot of arrows into him. Just now noticing looking back, it looks like Radagon grabs a lot more for some reason when I'm using bows. Maybe it's because I'm mid-distance from him, but I'm not sure. Someone can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But with Red Feather, Howl, and Golden Vow in a maxed out bow, I feel like I should be doing more than 190 damage, especially with fire arrows. Using something that he's weak to and still doing that little of damage just kind of concerns me. But one pro to this fight, there is a lot of times in between his attacks that I could get shots in, like this. I wasn't too sure if I even wanted to shoot when he was in his parry stance, because honestly, that is a really quick attack that can catch me off guard. I wasn't too sure if I even wanted to shoot when he was in his parry stance, because honestly, that is a really quick attack that can catch me off guard. So even if I see the parry motion, I really need to be locked in. But thankfully, most of his attacks are muscle memory, and it was looking pretty good for this fight. And I also know that the barrage lowers your damage a little bit, but I also don't want to be doing a full attack and get stuck in the animation, so I was gonna stick with that. But this is exactly what I was afraid of. You remember earlier when I said when he parries, he could grab faster and throw stuff faster, right? Well, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Here is side-by-side comparison on how long the startup on his grab animation starts compared to when he starts it when he gets parried. And you could clearly see the one on the right even starting earlier than the left. So unfortunately, all that time and wasted arrows just led to an immediate grab. I got him pretty low the next time, and thankfully I killed him afterwards, and Elden Beast is a whole different story, let me tell you. I decided to save the fire arrows for the Elden Beast fight, but my dumbass forgot that it was in water. I sadly got caught here switching my weapons thinking I had enough time to get back and roll, but sadly, I didn't. I had to go through the whole Radagon fight again. But with the power of editing, you guys don't have to see my pain. This time, I played a lot more smart and stood very far behind him, so I could try to see if the Radahn's rain was going to do a lot of damage, and it did. I don't know if I would be able to be using this at any other point in the fight, so I tried to get as much off as I possibly could now. And thankfully, I got quite a few thousand damage off. This was going to save me a lot of time. But this is like another fight. I just have to be really smart, and with Elden Beast, especially the stars attack, I just can't dodge it. But beforehand, I made sure to look up just how to dodge these so I didn't get caught in a stupid attack. And thankfully, it paid off because I think I only got hit like twice for all the stars attacks. And then this little dickhead actually... he actually has a dick on his head. Like, what am I supposed to... Anyways, this is what I'm talking about with dodging the stars attacks. So thankfully that now I know just to run sideways on these. You kind of have to run at a weird angle, but after he started doing his Blade of Gold attack, and luckily this was the one that he fired at me most, and this one was honestly really easy to dodge. And also being able to shoot from a distance, even though it's not a lot of damage, it's still something. So I guess that's also a pro. And thankfully, I actually decided to switch to Serpent Arrows just to see it not do as much damage. I mean, it's like literally almost the same. But I did have a really close call here. I mean, I literally almost just died, and I don't know if I would have survived that if I didn't jump. But luckily, after he did the Blade of Gold attack, and after the fourth one, there is a long downtime. So if I'm just within the range, I will be perfectly fine. At this point, he started trying to piss all over me, and I could definitely tell you right now that that is not fire. But after that, I used Torrent to just try to get out of the flame range as quickly as possible so I could just rapid fire again. And this was a good strategy. I almost got clipped here, but I was good. Since he really didn't have any other attacks to do, since I was very far from him, he just resorts to his Blade of Gold like most of the time. And unlike all my other playthroughs, I don't have to be close to him to get hits in whatsoever. I may not be doing a lot of damage, but again, this fight is just pure time. But there's one main thing that I just had to do this entire fight, and you probably never heard me say this entire video, but I just had to stay alive. But luckily with Serpent Arrows, I was doing a little more damage each shot, so at least that would be able to stack up to something later on. Then he started hitting me with another Blade of Gold attack, and honestly, this isn't too much of a problem, just like I've said the other 3 times, and especially every single other playthrough I've done. I just know this by mind. But at this point, I just kept running away from him and playing a lot of time, because what better is it to be far away than close up and doing the same amount of damage? I could have used Radahn's bow here for sure, but I didn't want to risk getting put in a bad position for an attack like the Blade of Gold or the Wave of Gold. Sadly, this guy cannot get poisoned, so I'd have no faith just relying on that for this whole entire fight. Maybe that's also another reason why these two took forever. But I just try to keep myself calm and not make any stupid mistakes, because if I died right now, guys, I would actually quit the game. That's a joke. I would not. I would finish the playthrough, but it would take me a long time to refarm. And speaking of that, I literally had like no extra money to buy more arrows, so this was really it. I mean, I didn't really go farm again, so. He let off Elden stars at this point, and just to make it even better, he started trying to piss on me, and then the barrier was right there. At least it's not like last video where he started doing the triple rings attack and all of that stuff at the same damn time. But the double jump mobility after Torrent just makes it so much better to dodge stuff like Elden stars. It just can't turn quickly enough for it to catch up to you. And that was so far from him. I'm pretty sure I literally could have just sprinted sideways and dodged all of those. But again, I need to play safe here, and looking at my arsenal, I only have 15 arrows left, so I had to make these worth it. But thankfully, I did have a lot of fire arrows left since I decided just to use normal arrows for the Radagon fight. Sadly, I didn't show you guys, but the normal arrows were only doing 6 less damage than the fire arrows, something that Radagon is weak to. You know, also looking back, I feel like it would have been pretty smart to use fire arrows instead so I could use normal arrows for something that sits in water the whole arena. Okay, let's just move on. This fight was literally just pure time, and I almost got clipped here by the fire, but thankfully I didn't. And I also ended up running out of arrows, so it was time to switch. After having absolutely no serpent arrows left, my only resort was fire arrows. So, I mean, sadly, I should have just used normal. Okay, whatever. Let's not focus on that right now. Elden Beast was getting super low, and I was actually going to do this. I just had to be smart here and not do anything dumb. This fight was ongoing 17 minutes at this point, so I would have just wasted 20 minutes of my life throughout Radagon and the Elden Beast, and the shit ton of arrows, so that would have also sucked. And he let off his final Blade of Gold attack that he was going to do this entire fight, and I just started spraying him with the barrage of fire arrows. I had no FP left, so I had to use the barrage to its max potential, and thankfully it didn't use much every shot. But that was it. We finally defeated Elden Beast, and it only took 19 minutes straight. But my final opinion about the bows is they were fun to use. I'm not gonna lie, but the damage obviously could have been way better. But honestly, it was really fun having to learn a lot more windows to attack in most bosses like Malenia. But yeah, guys, we just beat the game using probably the worst weapon type in the game. That is a joke for all of you bow users out there. I don't know how you're surviving, but it's probably hard. But yeah, my overall opinion is I actually really liked bows. It really didn't seem like it, but now that it's all over, it wasn't so bad. I just wish there was maybe a little more arrows to choose from. But other than that, I really liked it. But I really hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you want to choose what weapon I do next, I announce them here on YouTube or in my Discord. Thank you to all my channel members that happened a couple days ago. I really appreciate it. And if you guys want to see videos early, consider joining. But other than that, guys, I have nothing else to say. Just thank you so much for watching and sticking till the very end. It really means a lot, and I cannot say it enough, but thank you for the recent support. This build playthrough was very fun, and if you guys are trying it for yourself, I hope it's going to be very fun. But guys, I think I said enough. Thank you so much for sticking till the end. It means so much to me, and I hope to see you guys in another video. Peace out. Have a great rest of your nights.